Okay, today we're going to be covering a couple of weapons, the Nightclaw and the Longarm Enforcer, and I have only done this kind of thing once before with the Dragoon, the Thunderbolt, and the Old Smoky, if I can remember it off the top of my head. Obviously, you can see on screen, the Old Smoky and the Thunderbolt are the exact same weapon damage-wise, and the Dragoon is so similar that I decided to record those videos together. And today is a very similar situation for a couple of reasons, actually. First and foremost, the Nightclaw and the Longarm Enforcer are very similar. I'm going to spoil the perks here because I don't think you're here for that. If you are looking for the perks, you can just use these and run, and honestly, you're going to be completely fine. But I would like to talk through the options with you in case you need it. But as you can see, these weapons are basically the same. The Nightclaw does a little bit more damage per shot, but the Longarm Enforcer has a little bit higher fire rate. It wins out in DPS, but when it comes to shotguns, damage per second is not what you want to care about. In fact, in my gameplay, you can probably sort of tell that the Longarm Enforcer is sort of just better, the way that I saw it personally. It seemed to be critting for a higher number. I'm not 100% certain about that. It just eliminated it more frequently, and that could be because of the range. It does have quite a bit higher range, so it can actually shoot further away, but ultimately speaking, I was dual pumping these the entire gameplay, which I should add is going to make these weapons look a lot better than normal. When I'm switching between these two at any point in the video today, just know that, you know, usually in a normal game, you should be using one of these weapons at a time, but hey, you can make these weapons really good by double pumping it, and you'll actually have a pretty good session. So if you're willing to, you know, not use a Baron to move around quicker, then yeah, using two of the same shotgun is very, very recommended. In fact, I recommended this with the Browbeater long ago. You can see that video on screen. That is a weapon that is very, very strong, and if you use two of them, you are going to be quite the powerhouse. But you'll be a little bit slower because you can't use the Baron, but if you don't even use the Baron, then hey, what am I talking about? And the other reason is these are not that exciting. I have the Bear favorited because it is basically a better version of both of these. It does more damage than either of them, which is what I meant. It is more important, and it has higher DPS, which, like I said, isn't important, but it also does sort of matter. It has the same 43%, which is preferred crit chance there, which is a little bit higher than the Longarm Enforcer, and I think it shoots a little slower. But honestly, the fire rate isn't that big of a deal. The Bear does have less range, but it's not a big deal because it's a shotgun, so it is basically a strictly better version of the Nightclaw and the Longarm Enforcer, and that's going to become a trend on this channel. If you guys are subscribed, which I hope you are, and you guys like watching my regular videos, I think we can all agree that as I get through a lot of these weapons, I'm hovering over the Dragonfly and the one-shot, I am getting to the point where the most exciting weapons on my channel have already been covered. I can talk about a few more, and there are plenty of those videos that are actually pretty well due for a remake. In fact, I might even be looking at the Storm King weapons in the future. I am much better at making videos now, and I know more things than I did in the original videos, so I might be remaking some of the most popular, but ultimately speaking, I think a few of these weapons can be grouped together, and nobody's really going to have a problem with it. So, long outro out of the way. You can see these weapons. I'm sure I've showed a little bit of gameplay, but here we are. They are both pump action shotguns that have really decent range and do a lot of damage in one shot. They are strictly inferior to shotguns that can shoot faster. I will note the Ground Pounder, Stampede, and Huskbuster. Link to those two videos down below because the Huskbuster and the Stampede are, again, like scavenger weapons, so they're basically the same weapon. And both of those weapons do a lot of damage base and also are semi-automatic. So they are essentially like the double pumping I recommended, but they actually don't need to be double pumped. So that is definitely something I'm going to recommend. Those are not pump shotguns, they are semi-automatic, and that makes them significantly stronger, and that is why I am glossing over the Longarm Enforcer and Nightclaw so much. I know that these are heavily requested weapons. In fact, I've had quite a few fans that are big fans of the Nightclaw, and I'm sorry to tell you now and originally, I don't see it. This is why I put off this weapon so long. I'm only covering it because of the best shotguns video coming up. Hey, plug, you know, subscribe for more. But the Nightclaw and the Longarm Enforcer are just not doing it for me. If you are in the early game, you can power these up and have a good time. I just need you to understand, if you're watching this video, there are many better options, namely the Bear, and of course everything I already mentioned. I'm going to link my best shotguns video down below. That is going to be the old one. If you're watching this in the future, I might have updated the link to the new video. I'll type in the description to make it clear what you're working with, and I'll also update the titles of those best shotguns videos. So that's basically it for the the introduction side of things. If you're looking to perk these weapons, you can see that I've ran a crit build on both of these, and I actually, maybe these weapons didn't deserve it because of everything I've already said, but I actually did a little bit of math. Aha, you can see my numbers. So basically, this is what I'm talking about. Mag size and reload is a big topic with shotguns, and if you don't care about these weapons, that's okay. This applies to every shotgun, at least in the past. I'm not 100% certain if this is nowadays, but the idea is this. So your reload time is 2.7, and that is not per shell. You're not waiting 2.7 seconds per shell. You're waiting 2.7 seconds to reload every one of the 6 shots that you have. If you run a mag size on the Longarm Enforcer, you'll have 10 rounds in the magazine, and that's the exact same for the Nightclaw as well. So if I can note my numbers once again, you'll see that with the mag size of 10, you'll actually be reloading in 0.42 seconds per shell, and then if you have a reload perk, it's actually 0.4. Now this is interesting because for weapons like the Ground Pounder and the Huskbuster, as I mentioned earlier, it is literally faster per shell to actually run a mag perk on those. So it's actually a unique suggestion that I'm saying reload is mathematically better here, but you can see that it is 0.02, that is like 2/100ths of a second faster to just run a reload perk on this. So if you like to just spray and pray, mag size is perfectly fine. That's probably better if you're dual wielding, but if you want to reload technically faster, you can use a reload perk on this. As you can see, we are talking about 0.02 of a second. That is not a big difference, but it is strictly mathematically speaking faster to reload with a reload perk. Now that that's out of the way, for the rest of the perks, crit rating, crit damage is the best all around. You'll see that I'm just one-shotting normal enemies pretty casually. I was actually double pumping for a lot of this gameplay simply because I was just demonstrating that it doesn't really matter with normal targets, and even against the Smasher, they're doing such similar damage that those crits are really what's chunking the health away, and at 38% of the time on the Longarm Enforcer and 43% of the time critting on the Nightclaw, you're going to be critting plenty often, and they're already doing enough base damage to cover all the normal enemies, so you can just run a crit build on this and not even worry about it. If you want to run double crit damage on these 2 shotguns of all shotguns, then yes, you can run double crit damage and totally rocking out. That is a combo that works. I highly recommend Buckshot Raptor in the lead, because upping your crit damage with that high of a crit rating is hugely better than Shrapnel Headhunter, and that sort of brings me to my loadout. I have a whole video on this, but this is what I was running for today's gameplay. I enjoy increasing the shotgun damage all the time. Mathematically, they are very similar with the regular 38% chance to crit, but yes, if you are running totally rocking out, Buckshot Raptor is hugely better. Again, as I've been saying with the theme of this video, maybe totally rocking out is better spent on a different shotgun, you know, Ground Pounder, wink nudge, but yeah, so if you're running these weapons, you can definitely run with these perks. These are going to work completely fine. In this gameplay that you might have noted, the Affliction is doing a lot more damage than usual. I don't think that's intended, so don't always expect your enemies to just die after you tap them once. I think that is balanced, because it's not actually one-shotting enemies, and it's kind of fair in my opinion, but for that reason, Affliction is actually still recommended even without the bug. I always like the idea that my enemies are continuing to take damage after I hit them. Shotgun shells, you know, shooting 1/6 of your entire mag size is kind of annoying if you are shooting at an enemy that has like 5% health, so a little bit of Affliction damage to help with the crowd when you're shooting multiple targets is preferred by me, but slowed and snared works completely fine. The impact and knockback magnitude is not something I found useful, and on the Longarm Enforcer, I believe it's the same. Yeah, I just wanted to double check. So stunning or knocking back an enemy dealing extra damage can be nice, but that is not going to be a significant enough damage to really make up for losing out on that extra 45%. That'll only kick in on higher level targets like Smashers and mini bosses and whatnot, but I think that extra 45% is definitely nice. If you do have a stunning or knocking back and you want to make it work, damage to miss monsters and bosses is highly preferred, or hey, if you're already stunning or knocking them back, then maybe you can go with that bonus as well, although I think the miss monsters and bosses will give you a lot more mileage. As for the element, you can just use fire if you're shooting nature enemies, use nature if you're shooting water enemies, and use water if you're fighting, you know, fire enemies. If you're in Stonewood or Plankerton and you can somehow level this weapon up as high, then use physical, but I use energy for these shotguns just to keep everything simple, and I think that's just the best all around if you're going against all the different elements. But that just about wraps it up for 2 admittedly unexceptional shotguns, but I get asked about them, and hey, why not make a video on them? If you guys want to support the channel, feel free to use code Mista at your checkout. I'd really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel, that also I appreciate. You can become a channel member here to support me even further. Follow me on Twitch, link below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a nice day. And then